Good evening, family. Coming to you with another little short video. We're going to talk about this brother they call Sinetta. But I got introduced to Sinetta this about messing around with YouTube. You know, right now all I'm doing is trying to learn and raise my vibration, trying to live right, do right so I can move on to the fifth dimension. When I first saw Sinetta, I got introduced to Dr. Ben, Dr. James Wall, Dr. Walter Williams, Bill Valentine. I mean, there was some great scholars, Dr. Delbert, the late great Dr. Delbert Blair, the sister that just died, I can't never think of her name, Windsor. I mean, most of the intelligent people knew who I'm talking about. She was a great scholar. She discovered the ISIS papers. There were some great scholars. Later on, I kept watching, and they come up with these other brothers, Polite, Muhammad Ali, or Ali Muhammad, whatever that nigga named, Dr. Inky, and all these, you know, the Honk, you know, the Ahmed Rod Squad, and all these people. Seemed very interesting, you know, had some certain topics, you know, Dr. Reggie, that foolish nigga there, Saran Seti, great scholar of Egypt. If you don't know nothing else, you know Egypt. But I got to give him credit on that. You know. And it's very interesting entertainment, I call it. The conscious community, the House of Consciousness, run by this brother named Sinetta. But I'm looking at all this shit and trying to figure out how a motherfucker with a bullhorn started off doing this shit and where all this money coming from. You know, that's what I can't figure out. Where is all the money coming from? Money coming from them white folks. Fucking Jews, you know that. That shit ain't nothing but a con game, and he's the main player. They really ought to call it the Sinetta concerts. And that's all it's about. Rivals. This one against that one. The Hebrews against Ali Muhammad. Polite against the white boy, Jew, or whatever the fuck he is. Harry Rosenberg and all this bullshit. It's a comedy show. Entertainment, that's all it is. Something to watch. All those people are individuals. Every last one of them. If all those people's coming together and taking all this money, you know, that they're making, and you know they're making money because they're charging people for knowledge. Knowledge is not to be charged. You're supposed to teach knowledge. Because it's a game that they're running. You know. Distraction. You know. They done caught this nigga Polite. At least they claiming he's stealing money. Minister Yankee, he don't know which way he want to go. He do covered in here and he there. Ali Muhammad or Muhammad Ali, whatever they call that nigga. He done lost his shit. You know, nothing but confusion. This other nigga, irritated genie, he worked for Homeland Security. That's a big red flag there. What you doing with a nigga like that in your place? 2 red strikes, cause you get this other thieving ass nigga, Polite, con man. And everybody know he a con man because all them people ain't lying on it. Too much bullshit going on there. And ain't nothing being done to help liberate our people. Sitting up there talking about Kemet, they got civilization predate fucking Kemet. What about the Sumerians? The ones that talk about the Anunnaki. You never see many people talk about that because they can't go that far. A lot of them say that shit ain't true. Because you ain't doing no research on it. That's why you don't think it. They don't know nothing about the Sumerians. That's right, the Anunnaki. But get back to this nigga they call Sinetta. Never dressed like an African. But he always talking about black, this African, this, that, and the other. I saw that nigga buying a pair of alligator shoes, whoever it was, from some Jews. I think that nigga paid $200,000-$300,000 for them or more. I don't know what it was. I know it was way up there. I know if I was a conscious person, I wouldn't spend my money with no motherfucking Jew. I know in New York they got a lot of black businesses. You know, I go spend my money with them. He's supposed to be a conscious nigga. That would throw me off when I saw that nigga buying them fucking shoes with that Jew. I know he wasn't no conscious person. He just in the game for the money. He getting paid big time. Look at the equipment. That shit ain't no bullshit. I mean, it's a gravitation. That shit draw you in. That music, great music, theme songs and all that bullshit. He got it down pat. He got shit better than BET down there. Because the white folks funding that shit. What's the agenda? I guess to keep everybody confused. Keep everybody distracted. I don't know what it is. I don't know one damn thing. That nigga running a smooth game. Polite brought him to the top. He left and went on to Hollywood. Out there with all the demons. Well, if they're pulling the wool over our shoulder, they'll pay for it. Conscious means righteousness. Consciousness means liberation. Stop taking shit off this motherfucking cracker. But all they do is sit there and talk, have all these debates for money, you know, charging people $25, $30 a head. You get about 10 conferences a year like that. Look where he stay at in that big building. Up in New York too. That's gotta be about $8,000-$9,000 a month. Fuck, he ain't pulling in that kind of motherfucking revenue. I doubt that seriously. Not even the goddamn concerts. Cause I call them concerts, they call them debates. But they ain't nothing but conscious concerts. You got a bunch of uninformed people being there, don't know what's going on. Because America is about con game. They learn good from that white boy. That's his thing. Running game on you. Put your mind in a state of illusion. And that's what Sinetta TV is, a state of illusion. I ain't never heard Sinetta mention nothing about the people down in Flint. I wonder, did he make a donation? They love to tell you about give them some donation. Did he make a donation? I don't know. I know one goddamn thing. The truth will come to the light. And it's coming soon too. They got their followers and they got people that believe. Most black people in America believe any damn thing. White man come tomorrow and tell them the sky gonna fall next week. They'll be believing it. Just like they believe in their white Jesus. But it's all good because the truth will come to the light. And that's the only thing gonna set you free, me free, or anybody else free, is the truth. Instead of having all these goddamn conferences and shit, they ought to have economical plan, you know, but everybody's individual lives. All them people that he be interviewing and shit, people got their own thing. They ain't coming together. If they could come together and put all that money together and get some land and get a state, which it might not do no good in America, because Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma was living proof of that shit. White folks went there and just fucked up the brothers. Millionaires. I mean, this was way back in the 20s. So if people could do that back in the 20s, what about now? Instead of sitting up there talking about this and talking about that. Inside Netta, he's a nothing but a push button man. He know how to push all the right buttons, you know. And the message low barrel. You need to stay away from there. That's that Netta shit. Do your own thing. Don't get hooked up in that bullshit. I wouldn't give a damn if Netta offered me $10,000 to do an interview. I wouldn't fuck with it. Because it ain't about the truth. It ain't about right. He don't even dress like an African. That nigga might not even be from the, I heard he was from the islands some damn way. I don't know where the fuck he come from. But I know one thing, he just rose to the top. He rose to the top because he got big funding. What the agenda is with the big funding, I don't know. But we'll all find out soon. Well, black people, I'm going to cut this little video short. You know, all my blessings go out to my black family. Hoping everybody get their mind right. Because like I said in my last couple of videos, we're going to have some hard times coming ahead. You know, we're going to have to get our mind right, live right, treat people right, do the right things in life. Raise your vibrations. And everything gonna be all right. Peace and love. And I'm out.
Islam to the elder for putting it on the record that it's so plain to see. Even the elder with big ass thick glasses like this could see that these Negroes are about their pockets and they have no intention of waking up their people. Yeah, he said black and white people and all that stuff. We don't even care. That's the elder. He gets a pass. He's an elder. You know what I mean? He's been indoctrinated long. So he gets a pass. He could say black and white people and say America and stuff like that. Big ass glasses like this. Smoking a cancer stick. Telling people that these guys are push button guys. And like Professor Denham said, he got some good sound bites. So trust some of the video making more's gonna have some sound bites from that elder in their stuff coming soon, don't worry. Islam Moors, what's good? How's everything going? We're back once again. Canaanland Moors Tuesday class. Today we're gonna do the visual of all that stuff we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks. Today we're gonna show you what we seen, what we experienced on our little award tour. You know what I mean? Through Philly and Washington, D.C. Before we do that, you know we gotta do our plugs, you know what I'm saying? So make sure you go out and pick up Roots K, Up From the Root. If you never heard it, look it up and go support, you know what I mean, cognizant hip-hop, right? And it's a sister. You know, we always pushing brothers, dropping stuff or whatever like that. And it's a sister. And we're putting it on the record, right? You know, this is not some, you know, make equal to other sisters that you hear out there rhyming or whatever like that. Roots K is in her own realm. right? So don't try compare her to nobody else you heard talking about, rhyming and sisters rhyming and all that stuff like that. Forget all that BS. Roots K is the truth, right? Also, make sure you go support the good brother Noble Drew Ali told Moors, in order to change the people, you must change their literature. So I'm gonna plug our good brother Cosmo L, and don't forget, look him up, Cosmo L. Don't forget, he got the clothing. You need your Moorish clothing. Brother's a tailor. Brother has fezzes that he makes from scratch, and brother has literature. So we'll just take a little excerpt from Key Points Trilogy, Cosmo L, the Minister of Culture. Neith, Neith, deity of the Garamanti. Neith was a goddess of war, but her name also may be interpreted as meaning water. In time, this led to her being considered as the personification of primordial waters of creation. She is identified as a great mother goddess in this role as a creator. Neith, as the mother of Ra, she was sometimes described as the great cow who gave birth to Ra. When she was identified as the water goddess, she was also viewed as the mother of Sobek, the crocodile. It was this association with water, i.e. the Nile, that led her sometimes being considered the wife of Khnum and associated with the source of the river Nile. She was associated with the Nile perch. An interior wall of the Temple of Esna, Esna, records an account of creation in which Neith brings forth from the primeval waters of the Nun the first land ex nihilo, Nihilo. All that she conceived in her heart comes into being, including the 30 gods. Having no known husband, she has been described as Virgin Mother Goddess. Chemosh, Chemosh, deity of the Moabites. Chemosh was a god associated with the Semitic mother goddess Ashtar, whose name he bears, Moabite Stone, line 17. Compare Barton, Semitic origins. Chemosh was the national deity of the Moabites, whose name most likely meant destroyer, subduer, or fish god. While he is most readily associated with the Moabites, according to Judges 11:24, he seems to have been the national deity of the Ammonites as well. Chom, Chom. It is interesting to note that in the Linear A inscriptions, we find mention of the goddess Nia, equal Neith, Nia, equal Neith. Moreover, some South Indian worship Amma, equal Aman. The priests of this cult are called Chom or Chanrini, Khonrini. The Greeks called them Gymnosophists, Gymnosophists, Gymnosophists. This charm of the Dravidians has affinity to Khon, Khon, the leading Kushite god. The Proto-Saharan religions, Clyde A. Winters, or perhaps Ammon and Chom is none other than the Moabite Chemosh. The Moor language, Moore, apostrophe. In relationship to the word Moor, it is interesting to note that the term Moor existed in the region far before the use of Moor in reference to Arabs, Persians, and Muslims in general, i.e. 16th century to 17th century, used indiscriminately of Muslims, Persians, Arabs, etc., but especially those in India. Online Etymological Dictionary. So there you go, Key Points Trilogy, Cosmo L, the Minister of Culture. Google the brother, support active Moors that are doing something to change the conditions of our people. Ancient Kemet Islam and the Preservation of Ma'at, the missing link between Kemetic and Moorish civilization. Cosmo L, another book. Right, another book. For all those so-called grand sheiks out there who never put out a book in 80 years, Moore put out 2 books already. And we'll just find somewhere in here. Actually, we'll read the back of this one. Ancient Kemet Islam follows the premise of noted author and pioneer of Egyptology George G.M. James, that it was the Moors, African Muslims, who were the custodians of the ancient Kemetan culture and civilization. This book explores the evidence of the above-mentioned premise and reveals the light of Kemet, Egypt, given to the world again by the way of the Moabite language of Arabic and Islamic ritual. The author provides a comparative study of the Islamic, Moorish, and Kemetic thought, that there be no more talk about some Arab Zionist religion called Islam. It is hoped that instead, one may recognize a preserved and updated way of life as the current code of standards given to the world by Allah. Ua, nature, or any of the divine attributes through our ancient and modern forefathers who followed the succession of the prophets. Right? Ancient Kemite Islam and the preservation of Ma'at. The missing link between Kemetic and Moorish civilization. Cosmo L. Make sure you go support the Moor. The Secrets of the Fez. Cosmo L. Yet another book again. Mujwali said, in order to change the people, you must change their literature. In order to change the people, you must change their literature. And brothers, definitely about changing the literature. Sri Lanka. The earliest reference to such a cap is perhaps that of John Capper, or Ceylon, 1877, who, writing of a Moor shopkeeper of Colombo in 1848, says that this remarkable well-shaped head was surmounted by a little colored cap like an infantine beehive, while Mrs. Arthur Thompson, A Peep into Ceylon, 1870s or 1880s, refers to some Moor men seen at Hindugal as 2 very fine, dignified-looking men with high silk hats of all colors. Osborne B. Allen, A Parson's Holiday, 1885, observes that the Moor men shave their heads and wear a high cap made with fine grass plaited in colors. William Wood, Sketches in Ceylon, 1890, refers to the Moor men wearing strange beehive-shaped hats of plaited straw. C.F. Gordon Cumming, 2 Happy Years in Ceylon, 1892, says that the shaven heads of the Moor men are crowned with a high straw hat made without a brim, and these are often covered with a yellow turban. Henry Cave, Picturesque Ceylon, 1893, refers to Moor men with shaven heads crowned with curiously plaited, brimless hats of colored silk. www.sailanmuslim.com, SAILANMUSLIM.com. The Surat Tapi was gradually replaced by the fez, known traditionally amongst Moors as Moors have traditionally known it as the Turuki Tapi, TURUKKI TOPPI. In doing so, the Moors of Ceylon were met with opposition against this new style of Turkish head covering from the government. The fez cap, though a Turkish headwear, was at the time considered to be a symbol of Muslim identity, as it's suggested by the so-called Fez controversy of 1905 to 1906, when the noted Moor leader and advocate M.C. Abdul Kader, Cader, was prohibited from entering court with the fez. Pursuant to a notice published in the local newspaper by the Fez Committee, a largely attended representative mass meeting of the Muslims of Ceylon was held on Sunday the 31st of December 1905 at 4 p.m. in the open air at the Maradana Mosque grounds, Colombo, to protest against the action of the Supreme Court of the island, which prohibited Mr. Abdul Kader from appearing in court with his usual quote-unquote Mohammedan headdress, the fez. After demonstrations in Colombo and in other parts of the island, the Supreme Court permitted the wearing of the fez in court. And there they are, saying, forget you guys, we're going to protest. And they put on their national Mohammedan headwear and protested, and then everything was all right after that. Moors got to start wearing their fezzes in court again. So the secrets of the fez, Cosmo L. Make sure you go support. Don't say you weren't told, because when the internet shuts down, you're going to be mad that you didn't freaking go buy the stuff. We got more. Key points 2. Deconstructing the colonization of Moors. Minister Cosmo L. And we'll just stop right here. Back up one page. Moor versus Moor. Clearing a pathway to national unity. For the definition of Moor, please refer to chapters Blacks, Citizenship and Nationality, parts 1 and 2, in the first part of this series, Key Points, Essays on the Margins of Hidden Moorish History, as it contains a plethora of historical information put into perspective for those interested in studying Moorish history. However, we will take the time here to give a quick and easy definition. Moors are the forefathers of so-called blacks of Northwest and Southwest Amexem and of this Northern and Southern Hemisphere, North-South Central America, known as Olmecs. It must be understood that your native Moorish forefathers of this hemisphere were labeled Negro, Black, Colored, etc. And this is why most so-called blacks have Native American heritage today. But they are defrauded of their right to claim its benefits because they are labeled blacks, colored, Negro, etc. on their birth certificates. It must be understood that there was no disconnection between North, South, and Central Africa and North, South, and Central America, whether it be during the time of the Pyramid culture, or the Hamitic or Kemetic, or during the time of the Islamic Moorish imperial rule and culture, which completed and preserved the Hamitic and Kemetic way of life. Table of contents: the UN Trusteeship Council and non-self-governing nations as it relates to so-called blacks. Status of so-called blacks in the U.S. Voters' Rights Act, developing self-government, Morris Sea Rovers, Barbary Wars, decolonization process. 2. Temporary and inferior status of so-called blacks, colonial education, slave teachings, quote-unquote white supremacy, plantation Christianity, slave family government and child services, origin of the word black. 3. Indigenous rights for so-called blacks, caste slavery, Native American heritage, Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, rights to redress, maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage. 4. More versus More, clearing a pathway to national unity. What is a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America? Who are Moorish peoples? Having a Moorish outlook, defining national unity. 5. The economy of self, be Moorish, buy Moorish, think Moorish. What is man? Money, finance, uplifting, fallen humanity, managing, and dues. 6. A notable point of our story, Moor's Gate. Jews destroy Moorish lands in Jerusalem. Key points 2. Deconstructing the colonization of Moors, Minister Cosmo L. So go out, support, and there's probably about 6 more books or something like that that the brother has. You know what I mean? So make sure you do your research on Brother Cosmo L. 1787 to 1789. It's a hot time in old Philadelphia. In the space of only 2 years, 1787 to 1789, 2 new nations and 2 national trusts were formed. For the U.S. European colonies, acting under the perfected 1787 Supreme Republican Declaration of the United American Colonies, there was the United States Trust of 1787, and a new nation based on landed estates. This is the land trust owned to the organic states of the United Colonies, which underlies everything else. The actual name of the new nation was and is States of America, United. United was just an adjective used to describe their affiliation, but this entity is better known as the continental United States. Next, the United States of America, Federal United States, was created and defined by the Constitution for the United States of America, and the United States Trust of 1789 was set up to receive the assets granted to the federal government. Much later, a third national trust, the Public Charitable Trust, was set up by the corporate United States as a welfare fund to mitigate the suffering of Negroes displaced by the Civil War. This eventually morphed into the Social Security Fund. What are civil rights? When African Americans demanded equal civil rights, didn't anyone wonder equal to what? They were demanding rights equal to those enjoyed by American state citizens, so the Congress granted them while retaining the ability to cancel any rights at all at any time. Re-enslaving black Americans proved to be so profitable that Congress sat up many nights trying to figure out how they can pull the same deal on quote-unquote white folks. And circa 1940, they came up with the scheme to do just that. 7 steps to enslavement. 1. Make laws requiring all corporate federal state franchises to register live births. Step 2. Seize upon the given names of all the babies babies of American state citizens as well as United States citizens, and create new legal fiction entities operated under the same name. Step 3. Charge all kinds of private corporate debt as public debt hypothecated against quote-unquote Joseph Jacob Lew. Establish commercial liens against him and his assets, then claim that he has gone missing, presumed lost at sea, presumed dead. Step 4. Roll over all the assets of Joseph Jacob Lew into an estate trust also named after the original living being, only styled as all caps Joseph Jacob Lew. A trust created under Washington, D.C. Municipal Statute 2, Vital Statistics, Section 7201, Paragraph 10. Washington, D.C. Municipal Statute 2, Vital Statistics, Section 7-201, Paragraph 10. Owned and operated by the United States Incorporated. This is all done to enable the perpetrators to plunder, quote-unquote, his estate, which is by definition a corporation, an estate trust, and therefore in their control and their jurisdiction of the sea. Step 5. Everyone involved in the fraud pretends that the living American state citizen is dead and that his assets belong to the government services corporations. Step 6. Run this fraud for decades, then start over again. Redefine the individual estate trusts as transmitting utilities created under United Nations law, and name these new corporate entities after living Americans using only middle initials as identifiers. Joseph J. Lew. Step 7. Bar association members bring charges against all these legal fiction entities as if they were living, man or woman, a crime known as personage. And you could stop there. And that's from You Know Something Is Wrong When, an American Affidavit of Probable Cause by Anna Maria Reitzinger and James Clinton Belcher. Anna Maria Reizinger and James Clinton Belcher. You could also email at avannavon@gmail.com. avannavon@gmail.com. You Know Something Is Wrong When, an American Affidavit of Probable Cause. Quite interesting read. Let's look this one up. You know, once again, the European telling the truth. It's like Noble Dwali said that he's going to make them do. And they put it out there. Everything out there. They go in on that one. They go in on that one. So, our first stop was that museum in Philly where they had that Lost Egypt BS. And then we told a story about the guy at the side with the laptop. Everybody was passing by him, paying him no attention or whatever like that. When he was basically there explaining to people that everything in here is 3D computer generated whatever. Nothing in here is from Egypt. but it's Egypt, you know what I mean? Whatever, pay your money, go and see the Egyptian stuff. But
Exhibit.
everything in there is not from Egypt. Everything in there
No.
was third dimension,
Homemade.
you know what I mean?
Mm.
3D printer stuff,
Yeah.
right? So we talked about Tasha Dupras, bioarchaeologist, and her quote that was in the exhibit. We see these humongous pieces of stone was actually put on a sled, and these individuals are pulling it forward with people standing on the sled, pouring liquid in front of the sled to reduce the friction. So they're talking about the pyramid bricks and how they got the pyramid bricks from the quarry
to the thing,
all the way to the pyramid or whatever like that. You know, a million bricks or whatever, 50-ton bricks. The guys pouring water and then they're pulling it over sand to build some pyramids or whatever, right? That's where they're going with it, right? You already know that that's BS, okay? You already know that X-Men built the pyramids. Ain't no slaves or whatever like that, right? Marvel and those guys built the pyramids. Right? Superman came through, you know what I mean? He was just throwing bricks or whatever like that, you know what I mean? Flash came, he ran around some stuff, you know what I mean? Right? Hulk came, Hulk smashed, and made all the pyramid bricks or whatever like that. These guys built the pyramids. Right? Here's some of the 3D example stuff that they had up there. Just so you know, this is before the colors added or whatever, right? This is just the template, right? This is all the stuff that they had in there, showing people that this is where it's going, moving forward. We're not showing you guys anything that we got from Egypt or whatever. We're going to be making everything. Take a picture of whatever, put it in a computer, make a 3D version of it, use a 3D printer, print it out, put it in glass, and say that it came from Kemet. Egypt, Abyssinia, Sumeria, wherever you want, doesn't matter, right? So that's how the 3D stuff looks, right? And that's how it looks. That's where they're going, right? So more fraud that they had up in there. They had this map talking about the world's first great civilizations. Right? The world's first great civilizations. So they got Africa right there, right where the pen's pointing. But then they got Egypt right there, which is on the same place that Africa is, but nobody's not paying attention to that because it's different places. And then they got Middle East over here, right? And then that's just that, right? Just Middle East. They don't name anything else. And then up here, they got Europe, right? That's a little blurry, but you get the point, right? So they got Europe, Africa, Egypt, Middle East. Okay, this is one of the fake maps that they had up in there. Just to show people how much of a fraud they got running. Well, show intelligent people how much of a fraud that they got running, because the dumb people are going to look at this and be, oh yeah, Egypt, and not know that Egypt's in Africa, Middle East is in Africa, and that Europe is part of Asia, right? And they don't even mention Asia on the map, right? And then they put Europe up there, give the illusion that Europe is, Russia and all that stuff, and all that's Asia, right? So if you're in Philly, don't go see no Lost in. If you see Lost in Egypt exhibit BS, just turn around, go the other way. You know what I mean? Don't even pay them any mind. We went to the Saint Peter, Saint Paul Basilica or whatever like that, where they had the quote unquote Black Madonna in the corner. So this was one of the wall paintings, right? You can clearly see that where the two halos are, that's Mary and so-called Jesus, right? And then opposite of them, you see some other guys that their complexions not like Jesus, right? This was in the church, right? Okay, so they gave up a little bit there. Just give up a little bit, not too much. Give up a little bit, and then that's where they do their little sermon stuff from, right? So these guys got some big rituals going on. They got marble pillars and stuff like that, domes and all that stuff. This is inside, where
sometimes inside a place.
Yeah, right. This pastor man's doing this stuff, and then in the back we think that that's Jesus on the cross covered back there with the red whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah,
right?
yeah.
They had something covered back there. Yeah. This is inside. This is like when you go to court and then they have the gate, right? And then you have to go in the gate. Okay, they had a gate, and then you have to go in the gate, and then this is what's inside the gate, right? Okay, this is where the king of the castle does his little stuff from. Okay. Now there was this plaque on marble. There was this plaque on marble. Know for certain that I am the perfect and perpetual Virgin Mary, Mother of the true God. Here I will show and offer all my love, my compassion, my help, and my protection to the people. I am your merciful mother, the mother of all those who have confidence in me. Here I will hear their weeping and their sorrows, and will remedy and alleviate their suffering, necessities, and misfortunes. Listen and let it penetrate into your heart. Do not be troubled or weighed down with grief. Do not fear any illness or vexation, anxiety or pain. Are you not under my shadow and protection? Am I not your fountain of life? Are you not in the folds of my mantle, in the crossing of my arms? What else do you need? And they have that plaque. Then above that plaque, they got this sister right here. And then this sister is to the left around the corner of this. Right? So to the left around the corner, there's the plaque. And then they have her there. Right? Clearly, she's not European. Because when you go through the whole place, you can clearly see that there's European representation in there. And this is clearly not European. Right? Again, know for certain that I am the perfect and perpetual Virgin Mary, Mother of the true God. Here I will show, right? So this means that there's a fake God somewhere, right? There is a fake God. If this is the mother of the true God, then somebody's been pushing fake God, right? Here I will show and offer all my love, my compassion, my help, and my protection to the people. I am your merciful mother, the mother of all those who have confidence in me. Okay? So they had up in the Catholic stuff. That we're pretty sure all these Asiatics go in there and they go do their hallelujah or whatever like that. Some European version. When around the corner they have the sister in there talking about she's You know, she's the one, right? So then we did we went to City Hall. Now, City Hall was interesting too. Because it's real interesting how they have so much references to the culture. And they have so much references to the culture. Same thing that we're talking about. So we're talking about the obelisk. So there's all the obelisks just lined up on the street. Right? Going all the way to the light. Just obelisks, just lined up. And you know, there's people just passing by, like, you know, nothing. You just sidewalk decorations. Okay? And there's the stuff right there. So when you go into this door right here, right? You go in there, in the middle of there's the courtyard, right? And then when you're going out the other side, they have 4 of these dudes holding up. These guys are at the top of a pillar. And then there's 4 of them just chilling. And again, you know, people just passing by. You know what I mean? One lady. I wonder why they're taking pictures and I wish I knew more about this stuff. This stuff seems interesting or whatever. A European lady, you know, just walking through. Mm-hmm. Obviously from there, just walking through, just going wherever she's going, and you know, just why are you guys taking pictures of stuff under here? Like, what's under here that you guys taking pictures of? Right? Don't worry, lady. You just keep walking and let us do our sightseeing. Right? So that was one pillar. Then there's another pillar with Native Americans, so-called. Right? Native Indians holding up stuff. And then there's another pillar with Europeans, and then there's another pillar with Asians. Right? So Europe, Africa, America,
Asia.
and Asia. Okay? On these 4 pillars. Right? And then, you know, as you see, there's the pillar right there. So you know this is, you know, it's not some toothpick. Right? And this is the pattern of all of them. This is just how they're designed or whatever, right? Nothing superior to anybody else's, just, you know, carvings or whatever, right? There's the Asians, then, right? And then they gave these guys the little skinny mustache, you know, and they draw the long, the Fu Manchu mustache and stuff, yeah, right? They gave them that, right? Okay? In stone, right? Right? So they have them in there, right? So those are the 4 pillars, right? And then above the archway to go into this area where these things are, right? They have cow, steed, or whatever, right? They're just above the archway. And remember, and then keep in mind, we were talking about this too out there, how majority of the things are above eye level. Like majority of 98% of the things that are meaningful or mean something or whatever like that are either that tall that you have to look up, or it's just up somewhere, right? Just up, nothing at eye level. The only thing that was at eye level were the obelisks that were lining
Yeah.
the street, and in the courtyard they had a compass, right? Okay.
But everything else.
Everything else is right. Then they had another one with an elephant on it, right? So again, we're talking about the four geographical locations, right, representing the different nations. Then they had the animals from each place or whatever, right, representing, right. And then we already know four and the four quadrants and all that stuff, you know, relative to our history. Okay. And they had a lion up there, or a jaguar or something like that. And then they had the bear. Right. And again, we're talking about, you know, just stuff that's just there. Just sitting there, been there, you know what I mean? Just there.
How old is this place?
At least 1700s.
Okay.
So we're talking about foundation of the United States of America government, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, all these things, right? Okay. So it's not some, you know, something that people are gonna, you know, desecrate or whatever because it has some serious historical representation, right? Now we'll just take a little excerpt from we read this before, but we'll just put it out there again because we're talking about Philadelphia. And this is from Secret Destiny of America, Manly P. Hall. All right, Secret Destiny of America, Manly P. Hall. Page 106. Then he refers specifically to the chapter of interest to our present consideration, that part of this sketch which treats of the proceedings of the Congressional Committee in relation to the colonial flag, and of the unofficial consideration by a few of our revolutionary statesmen and heroes in regard to the flag of the 13 United States immediately preceding its adoption by Congress, has not heretofore been published. This last statement makes it extremely difficult to trace Mr. Campbell's source of information. We are forced to the conclusion that the story must have been given to him by word of mouth. The book itself must have been printed in a very small edition, for it has become exceedingly scarce and is seldom, if ever, offered for sale. On those rare occasions when copies have changed hands, the book commands a price far in excess of usual works in the field. According to the rules laid down by Sir Francis Bacon, for works published under the authority of the Society of Unknown Philosophers, write them down, Society of Unknown Philosophers, Each book must be marked in some peculiar way, easily recognizable by the informed, but not conspicuous to those who are not a party to the plan. All of the older writings are so marked, either with ciphers, curious headpieces, vignettes, colophons, designs, symbols, figures, or signatures. It is possible that the book, Our Flag, carries such a signature, for it ends with the following quotation: "Out of the monuments, names, words, proverbs, private records, and evidences, fragments of stories, passages in books, and the like, we save and recover somewhat from the deluge of time." Bacon. One thing is certain: Robert Allen Campbell has concluded his treatise with a curiously meaningful passage from the writings of the man responsible for the broad program of colonization in the Western world that made possible the creation of the United States of America. The selection of Bacon's words to conclude the book may be accident, and it may be intent, but in the light of the text and the air of mystery which covers the history of the writing and the life of the author, it appears more than possible that the intent is in the answer. Chapter 2 of Our Flag is entitled The Colonial Flag. This, in substance, is what it says. In the fall of 1775, the Colonial Congress, in session at Philadelphia, appointed Messengers Franklin, Lynch, and Harrison as a committee to consider and recommend a design for the colonial flag. General Washington was then in camp at Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the committee went there to consult with him. Right? So, General Washington lets us know that somebody was president before that guy. Right? If they're making reference to General Washington, and again, they're going to push the idea of Washington first president, you know what I mean? Black leaders are going to tell you about Washington and all that stuff, and presidents, and not go before him. Even though Europeans and anybody else who knows this history knows that General Washington or George Washington was a general. Nothing is known General Washington was then in camp at Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the committee went there to consult with him. While at Cambridge, the committee men were entertained by a patriotic and well-to-do citizen. At that time, the best room in this gentleman's residence was temporarily occupied by a peculiar old gentleman. As there was only one other guest room, Messengers Lynch and Harrison were given the unoccupied room, and Dr. Franklin shared apartments with the old gentleman. Nothing is known about the mysterious old man except that he was referred to as the Professor. His name is not preserved. He was beyond 70 years of age, but apparently in the prime of his life. He ate no flesh, fish, nor fowl, or any green things, and drank no liquor, wine, or ale. His diet consisted of cereals, well-ripened fruit, nuts, tea, and such sweets as honey and molasses. He was well educated, highly cultured, of extensive as well as varied information, and very studious. He spent most of his time pondering over rare books and ancient manuscripts, which he seemed to be deciphering, translating, or rewriting. These he kept carefully locked up in a heavy iron-bound chest and never showed them to any person. He was liberal, but in no ways lavish with his money, but was well supplied with all that he needed. The professor was a staunch advocate of democracy, and his favorite statement was, "We demand no more than our just due. We will accept and be satisfied with nothing less than we demand. On the eve of their arrival, December 13th, the committee men dined with their host and hostess, also General Washington and the professor. The professor was introduced to the visitors without his name being given, and his ease, grace, and dignity during the introduction was especially noted. When Benjamin Franklin was present, he stepped forward and extended his hand, which the professor heartily accepted. As their eyes met, there was an instantaneous, a very apparent, and a mutual, gratified recognition. After dinner, Washington and the committeemen exchanged a few words in undertone, and then Franklin arose, saying in substance, as the chairman of this committee, speaking for my associates, and with their consent, and with the approval of General Washington, I respectfully invite the professor to meet with the committee as one of its members, and we, each one personally and urgently, request him to accept the responsibility and to give us and the American colonies the benefits of his presence and his counsel. After graciously accepting the invitation, the professor made his first recommendation. He pointed out that the committee now consisted of 6 persons, General Washington and the host being honorary members. 6 was not an auspicious number, and as none of the members could be spared, let the hostess be included so that the number could be increased to 7. This suggestion was unanimously accepted, and the hostess became the secretary of the committee. The committee met the following evening in the professor's room. General Washington opened the proceedings by asking Dr. Franklin for his recommendation. Franklin replied by requesting that the entire committee listen to the words of his newfound and abundantly honored friend, the professor, who had definite suggestions to make. After the preamble, the professor made the following extraordinary remarks. The sun of our political era, like the sun in the heavens, is very low in the horizon, just now approaching the winter solstice, which it will reach very soon. But as the sun rises from his grave in Capricorn, mounts toward his resurrection in Aries, and passes onward and upward to his glorious culmination in Cancer, so will our political sun rise and continue to increase in power, in light, and in glory. And the exalted sun of summer will not have gained its full strength of heat and power in the starry lion until our colonial sun will be in its glorious exaltation, demanding a place in the governmental firmaments alongside of, coordinate with, and in no wise subordinate to any other son of any other nation upon earth. The professor went on to point out that the flag which he recommended would be subject to change in the future as the national destiny increased. This change, however, should not require a complete redesigning, but a process of gradual modification. To make it announce and represent the new nation, which is already gestating in the womb of time, and which will come to birth, and not prematurely, but fully developed and ready for the change into independent life, before the next sun in its next summer strength ripens our next harvest. So, the so-called Europeans, as usual, have their consul. And their consul said, you know what? Nothing's wrong with the number 6, but we should probably do things in harmony with number 7. So let's just invite this lady to come over or whatever, you know, and she could be part of the committee, and then we have 7 now, right? Professor is studious and all that good stuff, just like how they talk about the Moors or whatever like that, you know, name not meaning anything, right? Don't even worry about what my name is, just know that I'm the professor, right? So we know that the establishing of this so-called new nation, right? The establishing of this new nation was based on Europeans who didn't have complete knowledge finding somebody with complete knowledge to be their consul. And this is what all the so-called Negro whatever leaders are mad about with the Moors. Talking about we gave them stuff. Talking about we sold out everybody to the European because why did we give the European this? Why did we give the European that? The reality of the situation is that the European powers that came to the North Gate had to be taught civilization. They had to be taught certain things because eventually, like we're seeing, that's going on right now, just like 5-6 years ago, Brother Fontaine told those Europeans that were trying to kidnap you, man, that you guys are losing power all over the planet. And then Prophet came and told the Moors that all the wheels of industry will stop. And when it starts up again, it's going to be in the Asiatics' favor. But I'm going to keep the European here long enough just to teach you Moors government. Because you're not going to listen to Prophet because, I brought you divine constitution and bylaws. I gave you grand sheiks, grand governors, constitution, flag, national headwear, nationality card, everything that it takes to be a nation, but you don't want it. So it's okay. I'm going to go to the soul plane and do my work from the soul plane. I'll let some of the fire scorch some of you good Moors coattails, as well as the old Moors going to get theirs scorching, and of course the dirty Moors, they're going to get theirs. Right? But make sure that you take notes from these Europeans, because these Europeans were taught by your ancient foremothers and forefathers, and everything that these Europeans have belongs to us. Everything that these Europeans have is a version of our stuff that they're exercising based on their five senses, their lack of melanin and whatever else that, they don't have, which makes them not fully capable of exercising whatever it is that we gave them to its full capacity. And our duty was to take what Noble Juali brought, get our mind right. Then once we get our mind right, start implementing these things that we taught the European. And once we start implementing these things, then we have our stuff back. We get right back into the seats of power. And now we're dealing with under the principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Learn to love instead of hate. Ain't no need to go put European in slavery. Ain't no need to put our brother in slavery or whatever like that, because everything is even now, right? Everybody got their share amount of licks. So no need for us to start the karmic wheel over again and then set ourselves back another 500, 600 years based on not listening to what Noble Juali said. Because of some emotionalism, we think Europeans against us and all this stuff. Ain't European against us, right? The Europeans that are against us are the Europeans who know that time's up. The Europeans who are against us are the ones who know that they have their little agents out there, their little push button guys like the elder was talking about, to keep our people deaf, dumb, and blind in order for them to be non-descendable, so that when this thing crashes, they go down with this ship called U.S. democracy. Because the ship is going down, and everything that's part of that ship, i.e. property, Negro, black, colored, people with birth certificates, social security, whatever like that, don't want to proclaim their nationality, doesn't matter what you call yourself, all those people are going down with the ship. And they're going to be collateral damage, you know what I mean? So, it's nothing personal, it's not racism, it's our people's dumbass who don't want to recognize that, their salvation was given to them. Right? So, to stress the point, once again, can't remember where this is or whatever, but they have the good brother, Tamanen, right? Now look where the cars are, look where the traffic light is or whatever, so you can grasp the magnitude of this statue of a quote-unquote native Indian with a kufi on in Philadelphia, right? Standing on a turtle with the 5-point star on the turtle. And the turtle represents Turtle Island, which is the Americas. So the turtle represents Turtle Island, which is the Americas, and then it has the 5-point star, which is the same star on the flag that Noble Drew Ali went and retrieved in order for us to be able to say that we're a nation. Now, if this isn't hidden in plain sight, if this isn't the mole on your nose that you can't see, then I don't know what is. A turtle, right? Symbology. A turtle with a native standing on it. You go ask any native, what's the name of North America to natives? They'll tell you Turtle Island. Okay, so he's standing on his land. And his land is represented by a 5-point star. Right? Which Noble Drew Ali told the Moors that our flag with the 5-point star has been in this land for 10,000 years. Over 10,000 years. And then he has an eagle with the wings stretched out. He has in his possession, right there, his wampum belt. So you know that he has supreme power, jurisdiction, and all that stuff, because the one with the belt is the one who's the champion. Right? Oh yeah, and he's green. He's not gray. It was just a cloudy day that day, but he's actually green. Right? And green's copper. Same green in the flag and all that stuff of that star. And it's sitting right there. And people pass by this every day, especially Asiatics, and don't even know that they're home. No need for repatriation, like Rastas talk about. Go back to Africa. You don't go back to Africa. We're in Africa already. Nothing to go back to. Right? And that's just Philly. And we didn't even go through everything that we saw in Philly. That's just the pictures that I took. Brother Knowledge L got pictures that he took. Sister Ursula got pictures that she took. Brother Seton Rabe, he's from there, so there's stuff there that we didn't even talk about. We even talk about the mounds, the step mounds in dirt. We even talk about the river that runs through the city, under the city. We even talk about the hole that has the water in it that when Setonra was a little boy, they used to go play on the hill by that hole that had water in it back then. And it still has water in it right now. And nobody knows where this water comes from. It's just water in a hole. Just water in a hole. Right? Also, get at Brother Setonra Bay and get the DVD that they did the Philly tour with Brother Ras Ben. So go contact Brother Setonra Bay. The DVD is probably 10 notes or something like that. And get the Philly tour. I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours or something like that, where they go in detail about the history in Philadelphia relative to Asiatics. Right? So you can get a perspective. You know what I mean? Because it's real. It's so real that it's not even just crazy. Right? So then we went to Washington. All right, so we go to DC. And just quickly, this is from October 2003. Since we're talking about Washington, D.C., you know, we'll deal with the foundation, right? Sam Doku, D-O-K-U, October 2003. America has paid homage to the brilliance and ingenuity of Benjamin Banneker, scientist, mathematician, astronomer, and architect, but it is not profuse enough. Banneker, 1753 to 1806, darker than darkness itself, displayed unparalleled loyalty and boundless patriotism to his country at a time when the savagery of slavery and the callousness of slave masters were at their apogee. He helped in dispelling the overriding myth then pervading quote-unquote white societies that black people, quote-unquote black people, could not think. Banneker, without any formal training in architecture, redesigned the nation's capital, which Frenchman Charles Pierre L'Enfant, the original architect contracted to design Washington, D.C., was peeved because of his tardiness in paying him. In came Banneker to produce an identical architectural brilliance of the city, thanks to his poignantly retentive memory that remarkably assisted in the continuation of building the capital, quote-unquote capital. To help make Banneker's image in iconoclastic presence in the city, the Washington Interdependence Council, WIC, under the aegis of founder and president Peggy Seats, is working assiduously to have Banneker's statue erected at L'Enfant Plaza. The Gamut project is known as Banneker Memorial and is expected to cost $20 million. Holmes, former Congress, Reverend Walter Fauntroy, Fauntroy, is glad that the senior high school that bears Benjamin Banneker's name is the city's best high school and one of the best in the nation. I am happy that the nation has recognized the need to honor Benjamin Banneker. A little known fact is that Benjamin Banneker Senior High School is rapidly becoming one of our nation's most effective developers of our future leaders. After the completion of the memorial in his honor, together with the school, we'll be sending great messages to our children. Don't forget, Benjamin Banneker, darker than darkness itself, right? But they're going to build up all this stuff in honor of him or whatever. Holmes Norton, as usual, brought a message from the U.S. House of Representatives. With the nation's budget experiencing cuts everywhere except the military and homeland security, it is not easy to request for money for the Banneker Memorial. Holmes Norton said Banneker didn't discover his genius until his middle ages. He's the first quote-unquote black scientist because he was the first to make his work available nationally, said Norton. Among Banneker's profound accomplishments was the invention of the wooden clock that was in vogue for half a century, created an almanac, and developed a great love affair with astronomy. In 1980, Banneker received national recognition when his head appeared on stamps. An overpass at L'Enfant Plaza is also named after him in the district. I am proud of Benjamin Banneker and his tremendous contribution to our nation. In Baltimore, there is the Benjamin Banneker Park and Museum located in his homestead. He did very many things in astronomy, math, in addition to his building the wooden clock. Honoring him is a worthwhile endeavor. Actor Tommy Davidson, and eyewitness anchor Leslie Foster all paid glowing homage to the wonderful efforts of Banneker in his era, a genre that was incredibly tough for quote-unquote black people to achieve any measure of success in America. It is a pleasure and an honor for me to be here to give praise to an African American inventor, quote-unquote. Not only was he a genius, but also he represented the ingenuity of African slaves, something that has not been emphasized in our literature books nor made a part of the educational curriculum in this country, said Davidson. I wonder what he would be thinking if he were here with us today and looking at this beautiful city he helped develop with all its lights, mused Foster. So there's a little oil painting of Benjamin Banneker, showing off his designs. Right. Don't forget, the Mystic Order of the Veiled Prophets of the Enchanted Realm have a lodge in honor of Benjamin Banneker, Ben Bay. Right? No different than what Noble Dwali said, if the European helped me, why not you? What are you doing, Negro? Black guy? Conscious colored guy? What are you doing to help in the uplifting work? Right? And then when the Moors went to the museum, the George Washington Memorial Museum, and they showed the wall of fezzes in alphabetical order, mind you. Up there was Benjamin Banneker's fez with Ben Bay on it. Right? So we're sure you've seen this before. So this is outside the Library of Congress. While you're walking by the Library of Congress in Washington, right? You can look at the beard to know that, that's quite curly hair, right? Fez with the tassel. This is on the wall outside the Library of Congress. Can't even miss it. But, that's why they have this whole technological do everything from your phone stuff now to keep you from looking up. Because if you don't look up, then you're going to miss stuff. Right? Then another one. Turban. on the wall of the Library of Congress. It's a turban, you know, no big deal. The Moors don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. Letting the world know. This is the Library of Congress. Visitors in the multitude go there. Right? Only Asiatics on the wall of the Library of Congress. And only Asiatics on the wall. Afros, Moorish beards, fezzes, and turbans. And this is how they look on the wall. Right, this is for all the so-called conscious black people or whatever like that talking about Europeans hiding something. Europeans not hiding anything. They put shit in the open. They don't need to hide. Because it's not a secret that they copied everything from ancient Egypt when they came here. And the only reason why everything's copied because it was the ancient Egyptians' children that built everything for these Europeans in the Americas. Another one, these are different ones now, right? On the wall. Library of Congress. They're going to say they don't know who the Moors are. What's a Moor? Do I have to be Muslim to be a Moor? But Moors are on stone in the Library of Congress that these so-called Europeans go to every day and all that. On the wall, the Library of Congress. Right? And like we were saying, if they went this hard on the outside of the building, you can only imagine what they have on the inside. If they went this hard, like we said, no pharaoh looking stuff, no ancient whatever stuff that, conscious black people want to say that's who they are or whatever like that. Only Moorish themed. Only Moorish themed. Turbans, fezzes, afros, nappy hair, lips that you could see from 10 miles away, noses that you can see from 10 miles away. All these are different ones. On the walls. So nobody can't say that they don't know. Anybody saying that they don't know, they're blind people. And don't let them lead you. Anybody saying they don't know about Moors or they're misrepresenting Moors, don't let those people lead you because they're blind. This is in the open. And come to think about it, we're the only ones taking pictures of this stuff. Nobody else taking pictures of this. Then on the other hand, we were probably the only Asiatics up in there that had any sense to know what it is that we were looking at. Whereas everybody else, they've been got this history lesson, so they already know what's up. All these are just outside. We're not even inside yet. This is just on the outside. Our people could play games, but I suggest that, we start slapping these people, because there's no excuse for our people not to have knowledge of themselves. There's no excuse. Nobody's meet them on their level where they're at. Forget all that crap. You live in Philly, you should know about your history, because it's there, sitting there, in stone. You walk past it every day. You can't tell me you don't know thyself. You live in Washington, you can't tell me you don't know thyself. And then, we haven't gone to any of the other states to see what they got. So-called states. This is just Washington and Philly only. The amount of stuff that we put up just today alone is enough to make people start thinking about something relative to, do they really know who they are? Right? Okay. And then go inside, and they have this. Right. These could be Asian, but it's an Asian and a European baby pointing to where they are in the world. Right? Pointing. Like they have their hand on the globe where their jurisdiction is. Right? This is inside. As soon as you go in. Well, upstairs. Right? One level up. And then the other picture has the African with his hand where his jurisdiction is, but the native is not touching the map. Now we could look at it, the indigenous people, they don't have a place that they can claim, because everywhere is the indigenous people's claim. They don't have one place on the map that they could point to. The Aboriginal and indigenous people of the world don't have one place on the map that they can point to. That's why they're off the globe. Right? And remember that these are babies. Everybody has a claim. If you're claiming Asian, then better go there. If you're claiming Europe, better go there. Claiming Africa, better go there. If you're claiming indigenous, Aboriginal, you go anywhere. Because everywhere is your jurisdiction as the Aboriginal indigenous people. Displaying that as babies for people to know. Right? So we go to the so-called native section in the Library of Congress. This is how they display the natives. These look like some red men to you? These look like red people? These look like the so-called Indians that they say are the Indians that we see today? letting people know what's up. Not even hiding it. Because remember, in Washington, all the so-called museums or whatever are free. All you gotta do is get search. That's it. Some of them. Library of Congress, we got search. But the other ones we went to, no search. You just walk in there. This is how they portray the so-called natives, the Aboriginal indigenous people in the Library of Congress. But they're gonna convince you that some status Indian or whatever is the actual native people. And that's clearly a fraud. Right. It's how they depict. Look at the difference between that guy and this one. You tell me that these so-called people came from Africa? You do not know Africans. Copper tone, American definition. Don't need to repatriate and go back to any Africa. We're in Africa over here. This is Library of Congress. Big painting on the wall. Big painting on the wall. Showing how the so-called natives look. Not even a secret. Only a secret to people who don't study, people who don't read, people who think that they know their self because, you know, they wear ankhs and dashikis. And they don't know anything about themselves. If they knew about themselves, they wouldn't be playing around like, right? So then you have all these, I'll put this one far. So all these rectangles right here have the Latin stuff in it, right? And then as these go around the building, as all these go around the building, in between these, there's one of these. There's one of these right here. Right? This right here. And then on the top right here of this, they have the Liberty Cap. Like on the Haitian, on top of the coconut tree, and on the Cuban coat of arms, they have the Liberty Cap in stone. About 50 of them. In between all the sayings. What are they trying to tell people? What messages are they relaying? Right? And then this is what Seton Ra was breaking down on the Blog Talk class, with them having the eagle over here, and then you have the pyramid seal over here, reversed of what the dollar bill is on, reversed of the dollar bill, right? So the eagle would represent the obverse, and the pyramid seal will represent the reverse. And the reason why that's put like that, anytime you see them displaying the eagle seal as the obverse and the pyramid as the reverse, it was written by, and it represents the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C. The 10 square mile jurisdiction where the eagle is the obverse, only in that jurisdiction. So when you hear them, whenever you see it opposite of what the dollar bill is, know that whoever is presenting that, they're presenting on behalf of the democracy that has Washington as the capital, not Philadelphia. The imposters, the rogues, the pseudo. As soon as you see the eagle first and the pyramid as the reverse and them pushing it like that, it's even in here too, where they talk about it. Actually, let's see if we find that for the class. Where they talk about the symbols and they're putting it reversed. The eagle coming first and then the pyramid coming after. Know that this is an operative of Washington D.C. whose job it is to make people think that the eagle is superior to the pyramid, when the pyramid is superior to the eagle. If you look at the dollar bill that they have right now, and they never changed it on the dollar bill. How come they never changed it on the dollar bill? Because that's how the die cast for the dollar bill was created back then. You can't change the die cast. You can't change the template. The template is just like it was originally. Right? And then they have all the sayings. The light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehend it not. Right there. So they have all these type of sayings or whatever on the ceiling and all this stuff in DC. Right? So then we go to the the Native American Museum. And then they have this picture. Right? Now this is a statue of the matriarch in front, and then her, son, mate, whatever like that, and then the colonial powers. Right? This is the front. Okay, and then there's the turtle again, representing Turtle Island, right? So this is the front of it. And average people, they are not observant, hidden in plain sight. Okay? Hidden in plain sight. They take their little snapshots or whatever, they go about their business. But then, this is what's at the back of it. And at the back of it, they have the little native girl, right? With a doll, with a fez on, holding a doll with a fez, right? And then she's standing behind George Washington, showing that, they now have jurisdiction, or she's now under jurisdiction as a ward of the state. Right? How come they didn't put her in the front with everybody else? Why'd they hide her back here? Right? And then again, showing the matriarchal position of Aboriginal culture, that the succession goes through the female. Okay. Native American Museum again. That's how they depict the natives. Look like a brother. Right? I don't look like no red man. Right? They got the brother in there. So nobody can say that they're not telling the truth and they're whatever like that. Yeah, there's some fabricated stuff in there. Trust me, there's some light skin. There's some $5 Indians in the Native American Museum. Like, it ain't no joke. but they do have some brothers and sisters in there. You know what I mean? Not everybody is red. They got some dark skins up in there. Right? And then the final stop was the Scottish Rite Museum, or the Scottish Rite Masonic Lodge. So as you're going up, you got the 3 steps, then the 5 steps, then the 7 steps, then the 9 steps to the door. Right? Yeah, so they know what they're doing. If they set it up like this, 3 steps, then 5 steps, then 7 steps, then 9 steps, they know exactly what they're doing. Right? They're doing exactly as they were taught. That's why you have to go to morecivilletter.net and do your research on the information that Brother Abdullah El Talib Mosey Bey is putting out in exposing the fact that Masonic culture is really our culture. That's not some European culture. All these holidays that we celebrate as quote unquote black people, and we get conscious and then we don't want to celebrate these stuff no more because we're conscious now. We know thyself. We want Kwanzaa, forget Christmas and all that. We need to go back and reclaim Christmas and Easter and all that stuff, because all that stuff is our stuff. All those so-called European holidays are astrological, indigenous, aboriginal celebrations, recalibrated by the European so they can have something to celebrate, because they never had anything of their own. And everything they got was from us. Everything they got is from us. Right? So that's the steps leading up to the stuff. Okay? And then this is how it looks. Right? Now up here, there's a door up there. Right? And I'm sure that's an out only door. Right? Now just grasp, because see, there's a man right down there. Okay? Standing at the door. Right? But you can get a idea of what we were doing in ancient Egypt. You know what I mean? When we look at this, that's somebody right there. Right? That's not a shadow. That's somebody. That's how little he is compared to this. And this is a Masonic lodge. This is their lodge. And then they have the sisters on both sides. They have one on each side. Right? The Sphinx with the hijab on. Right? Letting you know that the culture transcends, people talking about ain't no Islam in Kemet and all that stuff. Why is a Sphinx wearing a hijab then? If there's no Islam in ancient Egypt, why is a Sphinx wearing a hijab? And then they have one on each side, and then on this side of it, the side that you can't see, they have Egyptian writing on it. Right? They have hieroglyphics on the Sphinx. This is Scottish Rite, European stuff. And then the chematologists will never go here and decipher their stuff. You talk about European stole something. European never stole anything. He's copying, plagiarizing. You know what I mean? They talk about Noble Juali is a master plagiarist. The European is the master plagiarist. You can't tell me that Noble Juali plagiarized something from some European when Europeans been copying our stuff forever. Right? There's the door knocker on the solid brass door or whatever the door is made out of. That's the door knocker. And we did knock. No, we got no answer. But this is the door knocker. You know what I mean? And the ring to knock the door, if we can move those teeth and take that ring, you would bust somebody's head with this thing right here. Like, this is a door knocker. This is a door knocker. And when you knock the door, like, you're getting the knock. Yeah, like.
That's like some Disney fantasy.
Yeah, some fantasy door freaking stuff, you know what I mean? And then the door. And then it opens up or whatever, like, and it's just pitch black in there. You know what I mean? Right? That's what they're on. Okay? And then this is the top of the lodge. Right? So this is the top of the lodge.
A pyramid.
Not a pyramid on the top. Okay? Pyramid on the top of the lodge. Right? Then remember when we were talking about that when you go to Meridian Hill and you look toward the Capitol, this is what you see. There's the top of the lodge, and then there's the Washington Monument. Right? This building right here killed it. This building killed it, and this tree right here killed it, because there was no other way to. If we could have got on top of this building, we would have got a good shot of the stuff. You know what I mean? But you can get the idea of what you would be seeing. And you look from Meridian Hill toward the Capitol. And remember that this is just down the street from Meridian Hill. The obelisk in Washington Monument, that's like a good distance away still. You know what I mean? Just to digest the contrast, that this is way closer than where this is. Way closer. Right? But they have it set up that anywhere, pretty much anywhere that we went, we could see the Washington Monument. That's how big that is. If you've never been to DC, you can see that from anywhere.
I just drove past
it. You know. Right? So that's what went down. Now, what I did want to read was once again, Secret Destiny of America. Any group which imposes artificial limitations of prejudice, bigotry, or intellectual exclusiveness frustrates the legitimate program of universal enlightenment. No one religion, philosophy, sect, or creed will ever be the sole custodian of the esoteric tradition. Organizations pretending to provide the only hope of salvation can be immediately discarded. The Great Plan has taken on innumerable appearances that meet the requirements of human evolution, but the plan itself is beyond all appearances. Many have the privilege of serving, but only the divine wisdom itself has the authority to dogmatize, and it has never indulged that prerogative. The design is not difficult to visualize if the mind and heart are properly receptive. The religions, philosophies, sciences, and arts of mankind are all ensouled organisms. They grow up in the world like flowers in a field, all nourished by the same light and moisture. It profits nothing to argue as to which of these flowers is the fairest or which is most likely to survive, nor is it more practical to debate such issues as which shrub was predestined to govern the others. All are channels for the one life, which alone determines the fulfillment of the process of growth. The separate organisms of learning must finally come together to form one vast organization. If one part be lacking, the body will be imperfect. Who shall say in a magnificent association of this kind that any of the fragments which form the perfect whole is unessential? Remember, the great league of learning is a democratic commonwealth and not an autocracy of the elect. The great league is the fruit of the great plan. Once the body of knowledge has been ordered by the canons of esoteric architecture, it becomes one vast sanctuary. It is the temple built without hands, the everlasting house. Into this body the great plant incarnates, so that the form itself built by men through love and consecration is ensouled with the immortal light of the mystery tradition. There are two motions in human society. One is toward understanding, and this is the unifying force. The other motion is toward misunderstanding, and this is the dividing force. There are two motions in human society. One is toward understanding, and this is the unifying force. Right? Those who want to know. Those who seek and find. The other is toward misunderstanding, and this is the dividing force. And those are the ones that don't want to know more. Those are the ones who are content in their ignorance, who are content in their statelessness, and don't think that their condition could be better. Each human being advances the universal destiny to the degree that he overcomes within himself the impulses to divide and separate. It is not always possible to defend the conduct of groups or individuals or to cooperate with that which is obviously perverse. Too often, however, division is due simply to prejudice or to those egocentric impulses which tend to isolation through a false conviction of personal superiority. All institutions, sacred and secular, are composed of human beings. As these grow and unfold their natural consciousness, they verge toward each other by simple convictions of fraternity. Every possible effort shall be made to encourage good feeling between sincere persons of different beliefs. So nothing's wrong with different beliefs once the people are sincere. It's when you have insincere people pushing different beliefs where you have separation. Right? This is only possible when all are generous and find justification in the realization of the pressing need of united effort. The pages of history reveal the irresistible unifying force operating in human affairs. The story of a man is the record of the struggle upward and forward from isolation to unification. No one can go against this motion without betraying himself, his world, and his God. All good things have come to those who have learned to work together, for this simple procedure is a symbol of civilization. Go right back to Noble Drew Ali. Go back to the ancient minds of your foremothers and forefathers. When we go back to the ancient minds of our foremothers and forefathers, we realize that they never called themselves black. So why should we do that today? They never called themselves African. So why should we do that today? We know that they practiced Aboriginal and indigenous culture. So they were Aboriginal and indigenous. Right? Cooperation is the great work, the social alchemy which produces the universal medicine. it is recommended that the sincere truth seeker examine the various organizations which have risen in human society and determine by their works rather than by their pretensions which ones are dedicated to the advancement of world fraternity. Didn't Noble Drew Ali say that this is humanitarian, which is worldly? Didn't Noble Drew Ali say Rotarian complexion? Didn't Noble Drew Ali say uplifting fallen humanity? Nobody else spoke like that as far as the various organizations which have risen in human society. The only individual that spoke from a universal perspective, we honor all true and divine prophets. All true and divine prophets. Doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter what their nationality is. Once they're divine, once they're not false prophets, we honor them. Right? Again, it is recommended that the sincere truth seeker, that's you out there, the people who are going to rvbaypublications.com trying to find out something, the people who are going to Canaanland Moors to find something, the people who are going to Blog Talk Radio, listening to, Sister Anita L, Ras Mariah Bay, who are going to Sons of Allah, who are listening to Iron Sheik Moorish MC, listening to Roots K, listening to, Hakeem Bey, listening to information that is stimulating them to continue seeking, not to, shut the doors and say that, I found it all, I don't need nothing else, right? The sincere truth seeker. Seeker. What's the phrase? Seek and you shall find. You're not falling in your lap if you're not seeking. You're not getting anything. You're not knowing anything if you're not seeking. And in your process of seeking, it better be for truth that you're seeking. Because if you're seeking for falsehood, you're not going to find anything. Right? And sincerity. You want to know about sincerity? Go to the Red Book. Go to the Mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood of the East and read the chapter on when Yahshua received the title of sincerity. And you'll know what that is. You'll know what he went through in order to humble himself to be sincere. It is recommended that the sincere truth seeker examine the various organizations which have risen in human society and determine by their works rather than by their pretensions which ones are dedicated to the advancement of world fraternity. Such associations, whether they be actual instruments of the secret schools or simply groups of sincere persons, are laboring in the light and for the light. Such associations, whether they be actual instruments of the secret schools or simply groups of sincere people. Just people who just, can't find a temple anywhere because of all corruption. Every time they go to temple, it's like church or whatever like that. And they say, forget that, we don't want to do nothing like that. We're just going to come together as sincere people who want to learn, and we're going to study together. Those persons, natural persons, are laboring in the light for the light. Once convinced of the reality of the great plan, the individual also receives a vision of realities which enable him to conduct his own affairs in harmony with the larger destiny. The esoteric tradition, first embodied in its adepts and later incarnated into the whole body of humankind, brings the kingdom of heaven to earth. A regenerated human society, unfolding under the disciples of the mysteries, fashions the eternal city, which bears witness to the laws of heaven. Who shall deny that this vision of things possible to man is the noblest and most wonderful of human dreams? And who shall deny that man has himself the power to make his dreams come true? Progress builds solid foundations under dreams. Progress builds solid foundations under dreams. The trestle board of the mysteries is the divine dream for humanity. The mystery schools were the sacred colleges, and the first graduates of those secret institutions were the adept builders. These initiate builders were skilled in the arts and sciences required to transform the dream of universal brotherhood into the temporal fact of the divine commonwealth. The initiate, Jesus, Yahshua, personified the great plan, declared its simple rule when he said, "He that is not with me is against me." Matthew 17, verse 30. So there we go. The truth. America's Secret Destiny, Manly P. Hall. You're like, oh, Mason, why you guys listen to Masons? That's not, no, he dropped some high science. He dropped how to fix these issues that we have in our community. In 2 pages of his book, The Secret Destiny of America, in the foreword. But, certain people are not going to read that because, you know what I mean? They're content in their niggerdom. But we'll let them chill in their niggerdom, and we'll continue to do what Noble Drew Ali laid down for us to do. Not straying and all that stuff, you know what I mean? We're doing what was laid down. So Islam to all the Moors, don't forget, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, Blog Talk Radio /MHHS Eyes Wide Open. Call in number 347-945-5899. Don't forget, you know something is wrong when an American affidavit of probable cause, Anna Maria Reisinger and James Clinton Belcher. Go get that. You know what I mean? Support Europeans who are exposing this democracy order and trying to get the people to start thinking like Noble Drew Ali said. And remember, Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, if the European helped me, why not you? So if a European could, put their little pea brain together and come up with this, then ain't nobody have no excuse why they can't do something to assist in the great missionary work. And don't forget, Brother Cosmo L, key points 2, deconstructing the colonization of Moors. Cosmo L, the secrets of the Fez. Cosmo L, ancient Kemite Islam and the preservation of Ma'at. The missing link between Kemetic and Moorish civilization. And Key Points Trilogy by Cosmo L, Minister of Culture. And don't forget, willofalah.com. Get the Iron Sheik downloads, get all the hip hop, you know what I mean? We're doing our best to inspire our people in whatever way that we can to understand the truth about their nationality and their birthrights, because without nationality you're done for. You're just a floating carcass. And don't forget khalifamedia.com. You can get all the Cujo L books, Rami Salam L books, and Sister Alzara Bey books, and everything else, Noble Drew Ali, Circle 7, Holy Quran, all that stuff. Right? So peace and love, Mars. We'll just close out with our prayer. I think that was it. I think that was everything. Oh, can't forget, we gotta put the master up there, just so everybody knows, you know what I mean, who he is, just so you seen him, so you can get the death stare and realize that it's not no game out here. People who want to play, let them play, but we're on that nature L Bay, no smiling. Well, yeah, don't forget, get your Up From the Root, Sister Roots K, the new EP produced by Mike Flo. Don't forget, Mike Flo, that's Dead Prez and all them people there. You know what I mean? So just remember, that's Dead Prez. Dead Prez producer produced a whole album for Amore. Don't get it twisted, right? Whole album, Up From the Root. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Islam. And as well, can't forget to give a shout out to all the Moors. Shout out to all the Moors that, been supporting Canaanland Moors, tuning in to class every Tuesday. All the Moors who's been going on to YouTube, leaving their little comments and stuff like that, showing support, honors to you, peace and love. And we'll be live at 9:30, Blog Talk Radio, Islam.